Hello everyone, this is Aussie Elect. Happy election day everyone. This is going to be a video about New South Wales. I am once again joined by Anglo Election Insights. When it comes to New South Wales, he does know a fair bit as well because he also travelled around there a couple of weeks ago on a little holiday, drove around, took a look at some election signs, stuff like that. I want to go on to a very similar seat in a lot of ways to McNamara, and that's the seat of Richmond. It's another really complicated one that really hurts my brain even trying to think about it, because it's not the kind of seat that has the sort of demographics offhand that would be like a Greens seat. It's like definitely an older population, although you have said before that there has been sort of some younger people moving into this area. And the Greens vote is on the rise as well. It's been on the rise since 2001. It was 10% back in 2001, and now it's like over 20%, I believe.
My thought is that when you look at which groups are swinging away from the coalition, it's not like the retirees and boomers particularly. And that's what the Nats vote here is. It's your boomers that come from Sydney and retire to the sunshine in like Ballina and Tweed. I don't see like a compelling case for them to move to Labor to protect Justine Elliott. But at the same time, this is a really fast growing electorate, and a lot of that growth is from Gen Z and younger millennials. Like, I don't think the personal vote of the sitting Labor MP has much of an impact. The culture of this area is only getting more and more friendly to the Greens. So even though there might be more money coming in, it's sort of lefty, like hippie money, if you know what I mean. You know, a lot of influencers, a lot of travelers, a lot of people who are like sort of really spiritually minded or whatever. There's nothing that is attracting them to Labor, I would say. It's all very kind of alternative, and that's growing, not diminishing. It's not like more normies are moving in, more families. They're all sort of getting pushed out. It's creating this big like rich poor divide in the seat as well. For me, like it all kind of points to a Green win, but at the same time, I'm hearing things aren't going all that well on the ground. You know, they've obviously got seats north of the border that they're looking to sandbag, which could be a bit of a drag on Green resources as well.
I've heard that Mandy Nolan is sort of a little bit of a controversial candidate as well. She's maybe said some interesting things in the past that people have dug up.
I've heard that too, yeah.
I think it's possible that this could actually end up being a Greens versus Labor contest. I know that there's these like right-wing minor party votes down here.
I think that's very unlikely that they would get knocked out at the 3CP with the right-wing minor parties as well, because that culture exists up there too. There's definitely openness to, you know, parties that opposed vaccine mandates and that sort of thing, which is lingering.
But for the Greens to win, then you also need like the Labor preferences also to flow really well to the Greens as well.
I would think your average Labor voter in this seat probably feels closer to the Greens than they do the Nats. The other thing to consider is the candidate. She's like this Christian that has said weird stuff in the past that just doesn't fit the electorate at all. Like, it's just not a good fit. I don't know why she's running again. Her personally is probably a drag on the Nats vote, and I don't think Labor preferences would favour her all that much.
It'll be interesting to see if the Greens do make the two candidate preferred. Yeah, I'm going to say this is a toss-up as well between the Greens and the Labor Party at this point.
Yeah, that's fair.
So Cowper, it's probably going to be an independent picking up the seat. Like we saw at that Port Macquarie by-election that the Nationals did okay. They did get a swing towards them, but the Liberals did hang on a margin of like 53.5%. So it could just be that like the quickly developing communities are sort of getting turned off from like the national sort of way of viewing the world.
Port Macquarie itself is very like ex-Sydney boomer. Those are people that would be very comfortable voting Liberal as opposed to National, like more so than in Coffs, and particularly in the more regional parts of this seat. For a seat that will fall to an independent, I would have expected more of like a bad blowout poll, like one where she's leading like 56-44, whereas Climate 200's UCOM's push polls can only get her to like 52 or 53. She's a very like inoffensive candidate, strong community links, worked in health, which is a big employer in that region. The sleeper issue that could help the Nats is crime. It's really bad in Kempsey. There's been rallies about it where the Nats have had a presence. I don't know to what extent that's sort of proliferated throughout the rest of the electorate, maybe a little bit in Coffs and some of the other smaller towns, not so much in Port Macquarie. But again, like in an electorate like Solomon or maybe Dunkley, as we were saying, that could be the one thing that swings some voters away from the independent.
I'm just looking at the Kempsey PPVC last election. That was like 70-30 to the Nationals. So they already have a pretty strong staple hold here. So I don't know if that can really improve that much more.
Yeah, it might not be enough juice to squeeze. Yeah.
But yeah, that YouGov MLP did also point to this massive blowout going to the independent. So I'm going to say the independent is probably favoured here, more so than a lot of other electorates.
I would agree.
Hunter, it's looking like the Labour primary vote is just going to be too hard to beat. We did have that random poll where One Nation were doing quite well, but the Labour candidate is really popular. The Nationals are the ones who are probably going to get like a big hit from One Nation, I'm assuming. I don't know if that like earthquake that happened the other week is going to sort of scare off people in this electorate and in neighbouring Paterson from nuclear. We've said for a long time, and there's going to be a hard ask for the coalition to win this one. One Nation have like an outside chance. They got like 22% in 2019. If they somehow manage to get over the Nationals, who I do think will probably be down quite a bit, they could get pretty close to beating Labour, but I just think most of these Greens preferences are probably just going to go straight to Labour. Labour should be fine here.
I don't know if you've seen much from Stuart Bonds. He's the Fon candidate, One Nation. I feel like he taps into the same sort of appeal that the sitting member Dan Repicoli does. Like that sort of tradie coal miner, like it's something that the Nationals are going to miss out on for sure. Like Dutton's not endeared himself to the region, like that sort of blokey. I'm with you. I've got your back. I feel like Stuart Bonds really taps into that quite well. It could lead him into the two candidate preferred, but preference flow from like Nat to Fon might be a bit weaker than Fon to Nat, possibly.
Yeah, I agree with
wouldn't
that.
know. It hasn't been tested much, but it could be the case.
Yeah, okay. All right, fair enough. Yeah, I think probably Labour will hang on. Paterson, earlier, obviously in the year, everyone was thinking like, oh, this is a shoe-in for the coalition. They're going to pick this one up. What has changed is YouGov pointed to like the tradie vote coming back to Labour a little bit. Those YouGov MLPs is thinking that Labour will probably keep this seat. Does have an issue with the cost of living. It has hit a place like this pretty hard, I'm pretty sure. And the demographics do point to this being an older seat, but you have done some work and you have seen that there has been maybe a shift back of millennials into this seat, and that might help Labour hang on.
Yeah, because I think a lot of people have moved into places like Maitland. There's a lot of new mortgages. I think that might have also been just the sloshing around of different people in the redistribution more than anything as well. There's an offshore wind problem here and how that feeds into like the tourism, which is a big part of the local economy. The coal still like casts a long shadow over the sort of medium to long-term economic prospects of the region too. When you look at the candidates, there's a centre-right independent who I think was like the mayor of Maitland. Fon will probably do well if their preferences flow a little bit stronger to the coalition this time. That could be enough. The Labour primary has to be like probably high 30s at the very least for them to hang on to this one. I'm just not sure they're going to pull it off. I still think the coalition win this one.
I don't believe that we're going to see what like that like JWS agency said, where like we're going to get some seats where the One Nation is going to flow like 90% to the coalition. I think probably at most we'll get like, I don't know, 75 or 80%. So One Nation had like 8% in 2022. I do think that they're going to improve a bit.
I could double it, to be honest. If you find One Nation voters in a poll, or like in your poll sample, they're probably going to be true believers who are going to follow like the party directive, whereas your average One Nation voter is probably actually not that engaged.
We're going to do like 3 seats at once, I guess. Robertson, Dobell, and Shortland. Similar area. It's all on the Central Coast. Robertson, local member, pretty popular. This is like the bellwether seat. I think Labour will do all right. And then Dobell and Shortland, margins are a little bit higher. I do think this area is getting a couple of retirees moving in along like sort of the beaches there.
I think at the southern part of the Central Coast, so Robertson and Dobell in particular, the work from home policy and the whole backflip would have really hurt Dutton. Like it's a bit of a work from home hotspot, and like it's sort of part of the lifestyle that people gained over COVID from moving to places like this. So that wouldn't have played well. As you go further north, like to Shortland, you sort of run into the same kind of set of issues as with Paterson, but to a lesser extent. Like the amount of swing to the Liberals, if there is one, probably declines as you go further south in this area, I would argue.
Right. Well, Shortland over time is definitely trending towards the coalition. 2007, the two-party preferred was like 65, and last election it was like 56. So there's definitely a trend there. Dobell is sort of all over the place. Robertson obviously is similar to Dobell, where you would say that probably the trend is towards Labour over time.
The only other thing that kind of makes me think about this seat is this is where that guy from Q&A with the migration question was from, right?
Right. I think you're right. I think that was in Wyong, that episode was held there. Yeah.
It sounds like a little bit of a local flashpoint. If I think back to that ABC map, like the rental stress was really bad in Robertson. This is a very kind of like Anglo heavy area. So if there was a place where there might be some angst over immigration that could result in blowback against Labor, this might be somewhere where it could play out.
Okay.
So that's just one sort of other issue to keep in mind.
We'll keep an eye on the One Nation vote on Saturday night in this seat, I think. So Barawa is the kind of seat which I think over time is trending towards the Labour Party, but I think the coalition probably will hang on this election just because of the high margin, but it's probably one they have to watch next election. Bradfield, that independent there, did have that drama a couple of weeks ago, but I do think it's the kind of seat which the margin is so small, and that seat is just like moving towards sort of the left side of politics at such a lightning speed that I think it's inevitable that probably the independent is going to pick up that seat despite the drama. Obviously, we already saw that in Mackellar, Warringah, and Wentworth. I don't see any drama sort of big enough to push those back into the coalition column in those areas. Like Allegra Spender in Wentworth is a big friend of the Jewish community, so any kind of like backlash against the sort of like quote unquote left side of politics about the Jewish stuff, I don't think it's going to hit her there. And then we have like the string of Labour seats which aren't going anywhere, and I don't think the Greens are going to be like a huge challenger to them. I think maybe there might be a swing against the Labour Party in places like Sydney and Grainler from renters who will choose the Greens, but I don't think they're in any kind of like reaching distance of taking those seats off them. We've got Barton, which is a really safe Labour seat. Linda Burney's retiring, but I don't think she was that popular anyway, so Labour should be fine there. Blaxland and Watson, I live around these areas, and yeah, there's some signs and stuff like, and there is definitely some volunteers for Ziad Bassouni. He definitely has some people going for him, but I think it's going to be a case where he's going to miss out. He'll make the two-party preferred, but he'll miss out probably like 55-45 or something like that. Reid, I think that's pretty safe. Sally Setu is really popular, and the Chinese community has moved back to Labour, and it's also the kind of place which I think is just going to move towards the left over time. They voted for the Voice. Bennelong, I'm still sort of sketchy about this seat. You said the candidate was pretty friendly with the Chinese community, but maybe a little too friendly, because I know he has like connections to like the CCP or something like that.
That's becoming a whole thing now. I mean, it's him and bloody Claire O'Neill.
Everyone seems to have connections with the CCP these days. I just think this is the kind of area which is probably just trending to Labour over time, and the YouGov MRP doesn't point to there being much movement here, and it's just going to stay with Labour. I think that's probably a pretty accurate result. It's probably just going to swing like 0.5 or 1%.
You know, who was the last member? Like John Alexander?
Yeah.
He's not exactly John Alexander, is he? He's not like this sort of electoral juggernaut like I thought maybe he was after 2019 in Kogarah, but like stuff has come out about him. There was some drama on the boost with the Labour MP's dad or something. It's going to be tight, but like It is a notional Liberal seat, so it does need a Labor swing.
I think they can
And
achieve
I can
that.
see it.
Like looking at like the historical two-party results, it is a really weird one where it went up to Labor in 2007 and just had a massive decline, and then finally it's gone back into Labor hands. It's the kind of seat that, yeah, it's moving
Yeah,
towards Labor. So I say Labor hangs on in Bennelong. Labor had a bit of a scare in Parramatta earlier in the year, but I think they'll be all right now. I know there's Muslims campaigning against Labor, but I think they'll only do so much. McMahon, I think that independent there is massively overstated, and I don't even know if he's going to make the two candidate preferred.
he's pretty active on the ground. He's not invisible. Wouldn't underestimate his ability to make the count, and I'm pretty sure like most of the Liberal members over there are like volunteering for him. And they honestly probably prefer him, knowing like the Liberal Party membership.
So Greenway, Labor's fine. Shifley's Labor's very fine. MacArthur, I like looked at like the betting markets today, and like that one, they've got that one as like a really safe Labor retain at this point. I know earlier in the year it was talked about as a possible.
Yeah, the rogue MRP, the
Yeah,
rogue Redbridge.
exactly. Yeah. Hughes, I'm going to write that one out completely as not happening because the polls have sort of softened in the last couple of days, and I feel the same way about Banks, that YouGov MRP. I don't buy that at all. Like David Coleman is too popular. I don't think that's happening.
Exactly. If he didn't go in 2022, why now?
Exactly.
What's he done except for like get promoted to the shadow ministry?
Exactly. Fowler Daly, I think, is popular, and as you've said before, I think the anger's there.
I just think Dialy's popularity is probably being understated, if anything. I think she plays it really well there.
And I don't think people have to worry so much anymore about if like they're worried about like she's gonna like support Dutton in a minority government, because I think most people don't expect Dutton to win as well at the moment. So Werriwa, do you think it's still possible that the coalition can pick this up? Like I did see that thing on the poll bludger about how like the coalition were pretty hopeful that they'll actually win this one.
Yeah, well, I also saw some Labor source claiming that Anne Staley has like deep community roots or something, which I'm not so sure that she actually has that. I think the Liberal candidate has a chance to outperform. I think like this is one of the occasions where they've actually picked someone kind of good. The minor right vote will be interesting as well. Fon, I think, are going to be a bit sort of suppressed, but someone like the Libertarians could end up doing quite well in this more sort of like multicultural community. And I know that they've got a really strong branch down there. So their preferences could assist the Liberal Party a lot more than like potentially One Nation getting 12 or 13%, which would make it competitive.
So last election, the Labour Party primary was 39, and the LDP, UAP, and One Nation collectively made up like 23%. So probably one of the highest in the nation, I think.
I think that Labor primary ends up in the mid 30s. The coalition's probably barely moves, and the minor right vote probably drops off slightly, if anything, which makes it competitive, but not this cycle. It's not quite going to happen for mine.
Yeah, I agree. And Redbridge pretty much said the same thing, that it's probably not happening. Yep. Before we go on to Calare, we'll go on to Gilmore. So I gave this one to the coalition in my prediction. I think it was like the only seat that I gave to them apart from Aston. It does have a lot of retirees, although you think that possibly some younger people have maybe moved in to Gilmore as well, though.
Yeah, it's a bit of a tree changer destination. Like people from sort of Canberra might have moved down, that kind of thing. I did do like a little breakdown of the demographics, and I think I found there was nothing that really stood out to me. It wasn't like, say, Leichhardt, which is just retirees are just ramming in there.
Well, it is trending to Labor very much over time as well. So Labor actually got a swing towards them in 2013, swing against them in 2022, which is interesting. I think that's just because of the popularity of Andrew Constance, though.
Yeah, it was one of those like fake margins from 2019 though. Like there was a pre-selection drama
Right. Okay. I see.
trying to airdrop Warren Mundine in, and then it split the vote on the right.
Oh yeah, I have heard about that. Right. I see. Yeah. Okay.
I think the coalition pick it up. I think people like to sort of talk about how Andrew Constance maybe isn't as popular as he was back when he was like a minister in the Berejiklian government, but he's got high profile. This is his second time running. He had that chance to sort of defend one of the small towns a day or so ago because like the Teal was There was some email about how she'd called one of the towns like a backwater or something.
Mhm.
So he got to sort of play the role of community champion. I think he wins it. I
All right.
think that
Yeah.
Teal probably eats up a little bit of Labor vote, and that helps as well. It's not helpful for Labor when Teal's run third in their seats.
And I think that YouGov MMP only just gave it to Labor as well. So I think I'm willing to say that, yeah, you're right. Probably the coalition will actually pick that one up. We're going to skip over Hume. We're going to skip over Macquarie because I think those are both easily status quo. The last seat that I think we need to discuss is Calare. So this is another sort of Monash situation, but the independents here, I think, sort of do have a lot more in common with each other than I guess Russell Broadbent and the independent in his seat. Obviously, Andrew G paints himself as sort of a moderate national, and then the whole vibe of the Teals is that they're like sort of a moderate version of a liberal. My thoughts is that actually these two will preference each other like pretty well. Like I think it's probably going to be something like, I don't know, 80% or something like that. Well, okay, if Andrew G gets eliminated, probably it's more likely that his preferences will flow to the Nationals. But if Kate Hook gets eliminated, I think that most of them are going to go to Andrew G. Does that seem about right?
Yeah, that does seem about right, which would make it pretty hard for the Nats to win the seat. But they seem to think that there is going to be enough preference leakage for them to sort of come up the middle and win. For a long time, that's been my opinion as well. Like, especially some of the more kind of remote parts of the seat, like the northern part of the seat, it's not going to be easy to achieve that sort of preference discipline. And I think the Nats primary will stay pretty good in those areas as well. Oh, don't forget the One Nation vote in this seat too. It was not insignificant last time.
Yeah, I mean, it's like 8.4%, but like, is the seat really that obsessed with like immigration? I think. I don't know if that's really like a huge issue here. I think probably it's more likely that these people will just probably vote for the Nats. Like, it's going to be just, or they're just going to go back to the Nats anyway if they vote for One Nation. I don't think it's really that important.
Well, I mean, that's 8.5%. What that's probably at least double the national average as far as a FOM vote goes. It's definitely something. And then we're seeing in the national polls that it's probably going to be well up from 4% to sort of 7, 8, 9% nationally, depending on what kind of a night they have. So you could see a double digit FOM vote, and we don't know exactly how that's going to break.
I think it'll probably just be like cut directly off the Nationals and go straight to One Nation. And then if it does return to Nationals, well, then it was originally national vote anyway. So I don't think it actually matters that much.
Well, if we're looking at a situation where the Nats are getting like 33% primary and One Nation find themselves on 11 or 12 with the two independents on about 20 apiece, the way that FON vote breaks is critical, I would have thought.
I think it'll probably go mostly to the Nationals, and I think that even if that happens, there's a good chance an independent can still win. But what you're suggesting is like a 5-horse race or something like that.
With Labor potentially as the fifth horse.
Yeah, exactly. Well, they're not going to win, but they're all going to be maybe on like not too far from each other primary vote. So I think my sort of simplification is if Andrew G finishes higher than Kate Hook, Andrew G is going to win. If Kate Hook finishes higher than Andrew G, and Andrew G gets eliminated. That's going to be more complicated, but I think probably the Nationals win.
Yeah, and I think Kate Hook's campaign is sort of it's too big. Like she's going to end up doing too well, and the Nats will keep the seat potentially. She's running a big campaign. This is her second go as well.
All right, well, I have some hopium for Andrew G, but yeah, like the whole preference of the shenanigans is going to make it difficult there. I assume you agree that One Nation will probably win the last Senate seat in New South Wales. It looks like coalition primary vote is going to decrease, and the One Nation vote is going to be reasonably high, probably higher than in Victoria. And again, they'll collect those right-wing minor party preferences, and they'll be able to win that last seat.
Yeah, that sounds about right. So for both Victoria and New South Wales, we're looking at 1 Green, 2 Labor, 2 Coalition, and one Nation.
Yeah, yeah. Do you think it's easier in New South Wales for One Nation to win than in Victoria?
They've traditionally had a slightly higher voter base. Like the One Nation brand going back 5 or 6 years was so super toxic. really, really toxic. No one wanted a bar of it. There's still like a little bit of that, but it's definitely not what it was. My one concern is what's been going on at the state level with the way that like Latham fell
Oh
out with the
yeah,
party.
yeah, that's true.
But then,
Yeah,
but then One Nation voters just don't seem to care.
yeah, they
Like
don't. Yeah.
they vote for that Pauline Brand and they don't really care that she steals money from all the state divisions and like just whatever. She's Pauline. She went to prison. I love her.
Yeah, I mean, there's also Craig Kelly in New South Wales as well, but I don't necessarily think that he really has that much of a following. He is teamed up with Rennick and Hart in New South Wales on this big split ticket. So maybe that will attract people. I think generally that will just probably just feed into One Nation and will help them get a quota. That's the vibe I'm getting.
Exactly. That's what's going to happen. Yep.
Yeah, yeah. Okay. So yeah, we're both in agreement on this one. Sorry, legalized cannabis fans. We don't think it's happening this time.
Yeah, because you mentioned Fiona Patton's sort of has a personal appeal,
Mm,
but that would draw away from the Greens and Labor more than
mm,
anything else. It's not
mm,
like there's coalition or right wing minor party people who are like, oh, but Fiona Patton, like no, that doesn't exist.
mm. Okay. I hope you enjoyed listening to us go on about the biggest states in the country. I don't think there's going to be any sort of surprise seats that we didn't go on about. Of course, there's like independents and third parties running everywhere. So,
The one that comes to mind is Corwell. There seems to be
uh,
something a bit funny going on with
nah,
like just
it's
it's not liberals, it's the independents, and just the way that it's going to be so messy.
all right. I mean, I'll just have a
I don't
look.
think it's going to change hands. It just I think it could be a really messy count, that one.
Right. Is that the one where there's like 13 people running or something? Oh my God.
I think so. Yeah, it's a jungle, man. Retiring member too.
Where's the Socialist Alliance? I thought they'd be running in a seat like this, or the Victorian Socialists.
They're not running.
No, neither of them are running. There's like four,
That's
there's like five independents here.
and I think one or two of them actually have like a bit of clout.
That's amazing. I've got on my bingo list like that like no electorate in the entire country is going to be won on first preferences.
Oh,
I've been considering taking that one off the list because I think it's probably next to impossible, but and like especially in places like Nichols where the independent isn't running anymore. But I'm going to keep it on there because I think there is a very, very, very slim chance of it actually happening,
I
and that's worth at least a
feel
shot.
like maybe. What about Mitchell though?
I mean, like, let's see
What
how they do last time. Let's see what.
Alex Hawke got nearly 53% primary last time.
You know, maybe the Christians will be really mad at him, and they'll vote for One Nation or Trumpet of Patriots. They think he's not Christian enough or something. I don't know what's going to happen. So there might be some weird ones where Lion. I know there's like sort of like a strong-ish independent there, and that seat's empty as well. We might see
Mm.
like a big surprise in a seat like that. I don't really know.
Big sort of third party vote as well
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
in that seat.
So watch that one, guys. Yeah, anything could happen. These are really big states with a lot of electorates, and there's probably a lot of stuff that we haven't talked about. But I hope we could have covered as much as we could.
We didn't even cover the Nats Bendathon in Bendigo. Like there's
That
yeah,
guy didn't he like he did some thing where he didn't like have a license for his pub or something. I heard about that the other day.
that would make me want to vote for him, to be honest.
Oh, really? Okay. Well, you know, they're not going to win there, but that is on my bingo card that they'll make the two candidate preferred, so that might happen. We'll see. Anyway,
Yep.
thanks for watching, everyone. Thanks for joining me, Anglo Election Insights, and hopefully I'll get sometime to make the Tassie, Queensland, and WA video, which I still need to do. So goodbye, everyone.